Okay, yesterday we started section 5, which was linear equations, functions, zeros.
Your projection on.
And so we're gonna pick up from where we left off last time, which was the word problems. Okay. Here's the first word problem. Well, in the sheets I gave everybody, here are the steps of solving word problems. Understand the question. Understand what's given to you, what's being asked, and what formulas you have to use. You have to understand, you have to see what you need and what you get started. So first you need, after you read the question, translate from English to math. Then use the formula, plug in your stuff, work it out, and always check your answers. Make sure your answers are correct. And then in word problems, your answers are always word answers. It's not just a number, it's a sentence that describes the answer. So here's the first question. Words and languages. There are about 232,000 words in the Japanese language. This is 19% more than the number of words in the Russian language. How many words are there in the Russian language? So what are we given here to deal with? We know we have to have Russian and Japanese. We know that there are 232,000 words in the Japanese language. This is 19% more than the words in the Russian language. So how do we connect the two? What's the formula we're going to use here? Okay, do what first? So we have 19%. So what's going to be in decimal? Yeah, so this, all this means, this percent symbol means divide by 100. So that means move the decimal 2 to the left. Okay, so what do we do with that decimal now? Okay, so we have 232,000 times, why is that? Why do we multiply that?
Those are the only two numbers that we're getting. So we multiply them because this is more, 19% more.
Yeah, but this is just 19% of that. So there are 232,000 words in the Japanese language, which, as you said, is that this is 19% more than the words in the Russian language. So 19% times that, what's that going to give us? How many? 40. So you're saying the Russian language only has 44,080 words?
By the way, when it says more, doesn't mean it's like go down. Because I think I remember when the question said
Right, the Japanese language has more, so this one has to be less. The Russian language has to be less. How much more is the Japanese language than the Russian language? We said 19% of this. So the Japanese language has 44,000 more words than the Russian language. So how many words does the Russian language have? Why add them? If I add them, it makes it bigger, doesn't it?
Right.
So the Japanese language minus 19% equals the Russian language.
So when you're given a percentage, you always try to.
You have to get rid of decimal first. You have to, because you can't multiply, you can't do anything with that symbol.
Yeah.
So we have to convert to decimal first. So we have 232,000 minus 44,080. That equals the number of words in the Russian language, which is what? So the Russian language has 187,920 language words. Well, that's what the question is asking for. How many more words are in the Russian language than there are in the? Oh, hold it. No, I misread. Hold it. There are that many words in Japanese language. That's 19% more than the. This is 19 more than the words in the Russian language. How many words? Yeah, how many words? I thought you said more. So no, it doesn't say more. So that's this many. Example 2 or example 6. Convenience stores. In 2014, there were 151,282 convenience stores in the United States. The total number of convenience stores in Texas and in California was 26,379. There were 4,003 more stores in Texas than in California. Find the number of stores in Texas and California. So how do we set this up?
This is we're dealing with time. Should we draw like that?
Well, what's the question asking? What's the question asking? So we have to find the number of stores. We want to know Texas has how many stores and California has how many stores. What is it giving us? So the US equals 151,282. So how do I write that? Right. Yeah, because then we know that Texas and California, says the stores in Texas and in California is 26,379. Then what does it tell us? So how do we write that? There were 4,003 more stores in Texas than in California. Because the way this word problems work is you have to find the information, find the main formula that tells us what we're looking at, that's given. Now we have to find the relationship between the Texas and California. You have to find the relationship between the variables. So how do we write this information? There were 4,003 more stores in Texas than in California. No, because if you use greater than or less than, then it's not one set number. How do we write the connection between Texas and California? Does this make sense? Is that true? No. What would make it true? Because one of these states has 4,003 more stores. So this one has more stores than this one, right? Because it says there's more stores in Texas than California. So how do I make them equal? What do I have to do? That's yes, you can do that. That's one thing, yes. Very good. Or we could do it the other direction. We could done T equals C plus 4,003. But that's not wrong totally. It's do you like dealing with minuses or well let's stick with this since you said that. So now we know what C equals. Anywhere we see a C, we put this in its place. So T plus T minus 4,003 equals 26,379. So we know what C equals. Now we have one equation and one variable. Now we can solve for that variable. Do we need that parenthesis? No, there's nothing in front of it. So we just drop it. Combine like terms. T plus T is what? 2T, yeah. When you add or subtract, you change the coefficient. If you multiply or divide, then you change the exponent. Now what do we do? Very good. Add 4,003 to both sides. That gives us 30,382. Divide both sides by 2. So T is equal to 15,191. Try to get away from calculators. Use those as check catchers. 2 goes into 30 how many times? 2 goes into 3 with 1 left over. 2 goes into 18 9 times, and 2 goes into 2. So if Texas is 15,191, what's California? I need more than just subtract. What do I do?
Subtract Texas from actually no. Subtract 15,000 minus 4,000.
Right. Because the formula for California is Texas minus 4,003. So Texas is 15,191 minus 4,003. That's 8, 8, 1, 1, 1. So California has 11,188. So far, so good. So you have to put together these puzzles. I'm not going to lie, it's not easy because we don't spend much time doing word problems. Even though in the real world, that's what we're faced with. We're always faced with word problems. So the first type we're going to talk about here are motion problems. Whenever the question has anything about something moving, we'll use this one. The distance something travels is the rate times the time, or D equals RT. Rate is the speed, and time is whatever units are given. It could be seconds, minutes, hours, or whatever, days, years, whatever. So example 7. Asks us this. Airspeed. So if it says airspeed, we're probably going to be looking for what speed in this formula. Well, this would be the question, okay? Because the title is airspeed. Delta's Airlines fleet includes B 737s, each with a cruising speed of 517 miles per hour, and a Saab 340Bs, each with a cruising speed of 290 miles an hour. Suppose that a Saab 340 takes off and travels at its cruising speed, which is 290. 1 hour later, a B 737 takes off and follows the same route. Traveling at its cruising speed, how long will it take the 737 to overtake the Saab? All right. I gave you a box down here to help us with this. In the first column, what do you think we put in the first column? Well, here's the distance, here's the rate, here's the time. No. So what do you think goes here? Name of the airplane, yes. So we have the 737 and the Saab. Do we know the distance? Well, yeah. Is it in problem? Is it in the problem anywhere? Well, you have in your sheet. I gave you a sheet yesterday.
No, there's no risk.
There's no distance in the sheet in the question.
Gives us the-
So we put a D there. Well, why are the D's the same? Because if you look at the picture, the Saab takes off an hour earlier than the 737. What we're looking for is when the 737 will overtake the Saab. So the distance we're looking at is when will they be equal? When will the distances be equal? What's the rate? The rate of the 737 is what? 517 miles an hour. And the speed of the Saab is 290. Do we know how long it's gonna take them? No, that's what we're looking for. Times the unknown. So we know that the Saab took off. And then an hour later, the 737 took off. So the Saab took off, then 1 hour later, the 737 took off. So according to our formula, we have D equals 517T. And this one is D equals 290T plus 1. Because we're using the D equals RT formula. But we're asking here, how long will it take the 737 to overtake the Saab? So the moment they're equal in distance, that's when anything after that is when the overtaking happens. So the distances of the 737 has to equal the same distance, of the Saab. Which means we have 517T equals 290T plus 1. We solve for what now?
So for T,
Well, yeah, because the question is asking how long? The length of time. We're looking for time. So we got to then, and the only variable here is T. So we have 517T. We have to distribute that one. We have T's on both sides, so which one do we move?
smallest one.
Move the smaller to the larger, correct. So the smaller one's 290, so we subtract 290 from both sides. Time 227, T equals 290. Divide both sides by 227. So T is equal to, what is T equal? What's that? No. 290 divided by 227. $1.27? Or is it 27777? Yeah, so it'll make it 1.28. Or let's make it 1 point. Well, make it 1.2. What does that mean? So 1.2 what? What unit is our time? Does it tell us anywhere in the question?
Just 1 hour. 1 hour later.
Yeah, and also our speed is miles per hour. the time that took was 1 hour, so time is in hours. So 1.28 hours later. What is 0.28 of an hour? No, 1.5 is half an hour. 0.3 is 30%. So what's 30% of an hour? What's 10% of an hour? Half an hour. So what's 10% of an hour? It's 6 seconds. Just divide by 10. So 30% would be 18 seconds. So it would be 1 hour, 18 minutes in this case to deal with hours. So after 1 hour and 18 minutes, the airplanes would overtake each other. So whenever you talk about, these are the most common ones. Typically, what you'll see for homeworks are you have two boats on a river, one going against the river, one going with the river. It's the same type of stuff. But with the river one, you change the rate. If it's going with the river, then you take the speed of the boat plus the speed of the river. If it's going against the river, then you have to take the speed of the boat minus the speed of the river. All right, so that's motion problems. And that the reason we set those equal to each other is because that's when they're going to overtake each other. They're going to overtake each other at this time. Do we know the distance, how far it's going to be before they overtake each other?
No.
Can we figure it out? How?
Or using, the rate and time.
Yeah, the distance of the 737 is 517 times t. So it'd be 517 times 1.28. Then for the Saab, we take 290 times t plus 1. And so it would be 1.28 plus 1. And those should be equal. All right, the next type of problems we're going to talk about are called simple interest. Have you ever heard of simple interest before? What does simple interest talk about? Whenever you borrow money or lend money, do you ever just pay back the amount you borrowed?
Nope.
Nope. You always have to pay a fee for it. That fee is what's called interest. We have two types of interest that we deal with: simple interest or compound interest. Banks use compound interest because they can go by each day that you borrow the money. Simple interest is one set amount that you're going to borrow and pay back. The simple interest formula, the interest amount is PRT. So I is the interest. P is the principal, or principal. R is the rate. It's usually given in percents. and T is the time or the length. Usually it's in years. Now, here's another problem that they have in business. How long is a year? How many days?
365 days.
But are businesses open, banks, everything open on exactly 365 days a year? And that's not also true, because don't we also have a leap year? So sometimes, typically, we have 364 days. During leap years, we have 365. But Christmas, the New Year's, Labor Day, there are certain days the banks are closed. So simple interest can also look at 360 days. So you have to have that defined first before you go any further. But for our case and purpose, we'll use 365 as the number of days in the year.
Do they usually give you time, like, they give you the years, how much years, like, if it was a problem? Or you would
They have to, yeah. Typically, they will give you the benefit of the doubt. They'll give you the 365. If they give you 360, run, because it's going to make it more expensive for you. So remember, the amount you borrowed is what?
Fine.
P, the principal. That's the amount you borrowed. The amount you paid back is called an annuity. You hear that a lot of times on commercials, said the annuity is, what that means is that's how much, if you have, let's say, a document and it has, somebody owes you money, what that document is worth is what the person is going to pay you back in that period of time. That's the annuity, is what you're gonna, what that paper is worth when it's paid up in full. So the total amount paid back is determined this way. The annuity equals the principal plus interest. So the annuity formula is the principal plus that. So this is what determines your credit score. If you borrow money, you pay it back in time, or if you miss a payment, which really sucks. If you miss one payment, then it takes you usually 6 or 7 years to fix it. So yeah, that's like failing a test in school. If you make an F in one test, it takes you 6 or 7 tests to make it back to a decent grade. So that's why it's very, very, very important. Don't spend more than you have. If you get a credit card, do not overspend your limits.
I thought, you can't overspend, like, your credit line, if you're like 500, you can't spend more than.
Well, let's say you're buying gas and your limit is 500. You had 499 left. They'll let you get that extra, but they'll charge you for it also. It all depends. If some of them will cut you off at exactly that amount,
Yeah.
other ones will float you the difference, but they'll charge you extra.
I always thought it automatically joined.
No, it all depends on what kind of cards you have and what kind of risk they're taking on you. But they don't care. They'll make money no matter what. Let's look at example 8. Example 8 says this. Student loans. Demarian's 2 student loans total $28,000. One loan is at 5% simple interest, and the other is at 3% simple interest. After 1 year, Demarian owes $1,040 in interest. What is the amount of each loan? So let's look at what he says. He has 2 loans. Loan 1, loan 2. Actually, well, I thought I gave you a table here. Yeah. Give you a table here. So here we have loan 1, loan 2. Do we know how much you borrowed? The total amount borrowed, this is the total, was $28,000. Do we know how much each loan was worth? No. So this is what we have to figure out. This is we have to have an equation for this. So let's say that in loan 1, he borrowed X number of $1,000. If that one borrowed X thousand, how much did this one borrow? 28,000 minus X. The interest rates. What were the rates of the interest? One was 5%, one was 3%. We have to convert those to decimal. So 5% is going to be what? 0.05 and then 0.03. Just to move the decimal place over 2 to the left. What's the time? How long was the note borrowed? 1 year, so it's only 1. T is 1. So the amount of interest, all we're looking for is the interest. What's the formula for interest? Yeah, so it's PRT. So it's X times 0.05 times 1. And this one is 28,000 minus X times 0.03 times 1. And the total interest was what? Do we know what the total interest was? It was 1040. So how do we calculate this now? We're looking for how much each note was worth. What variable tells us that? X. The amount borrowed is what the note's worth. So we have to take these equations. So what we have to look at here is this. We have loan 1 plus loan 2 equals the interest, I should say. The interest of loan 1 plus the interest of loan 2 equals $1,040. So the interest of loan 1 is X times 0.05 times 1, that's the interest, plus 28,000 minus x times 0.03 times 1, and all that has to equal 1,040. So this first one is 0.05x. 0.03 times 1 is 0.03. So if we have 28,000 times 0.03 minus 0.03x equals 1040. Point 0.05x minus 0.03x is what? Combine like terms. Point 0.02x. 28,000 times 0.03. We know we can get rid of the twos. So it's 0.4840. We're solving for x. So we subtract 840 from both sides. Point 0.02x equals 0.002. We can, to get rid of the decimal point, we multiply both sides by 100. Put 2 zeros behind them. Divide by 2. Why did I multiply by 100? Yeah, because to get rid of the decimal, I got to move it 2 spaces. Each space counts as a 0. 10 times 10, so it's 2 zeros. Since I
If you then multiply, you would have to.
divide by 0.02,
Yeah.
and then you need a calculator, which I'm trying to get you guys away from. So what does x represent? Which loan? So loan 1 was for $10,000. Loan 2 was 28,000 minus X, which was 10,000, which makes it 18,000. And when we add these two, we get 28,000, which is what we're looking for. Again, I'm not going to lie to you. It looks easy. Some of them may be easy, but some of them are going to be. It makes you start thinking.
The hardest part is really just making
Of course, yeah. The hardest part is translating the statement into math. Now we're gonna get to the easier questions, the ones that we can really relate to. When we're talking about dimensions, oh, there's when we talk about borders and yards and things, we usually have rectangles or squares even. With that, we have two terms that we deal with usually, perimeters and area. What's the difference? No. Right. Perimeter is the outer border. Area is the space inside. So the formula for perimeter, we have the length, we have the width, we have the length, and the width. If we add up all four of these, that's the perimeter. So it's length plus W plus L plus W, which makes it 2L plus 2W. That's the formula for perimeter. And area is simply the width times the length. Example 9. In December 2009, a solar energy farm was completed in Denver International Airport. More than 9,200 rectangular solar panels were installed. A solar panel or photovoltaic panel converts sunlight into electricity. The length of the panel is 13.6 inches less than twice the width of the perimeter. That is 13.6 inches less than twice the width, and the perimeter is 207.4 inches. Find the length and width. So what do we have here? We have a solar panel. And it says the length of the panel is, the word is means equals 13.6 inches less than twice the width. How would you write that? 13.6 inches less than twice the width. Let's look at that. 13.6 minus 2W. Is that 13 inches less than this? Yes. Yes. In subtraction, it's usually stated backwards. So it would be 2W minus 13.6. And the perimeter is 207.4 inches. Find the length and the width of the panel. So the length is 2W minus 13.6, and the width is the width. So how do we solve this one? We're looking for the dimensions of this panel. Is there any formula we can start off with? The perimeter. The formula is 2L plus 2W. Do we know what the P is? Yeah, P is 207.4. So 207.4. What's L? Well, L is 2W minus 13.6 plus 2W. This is our first goal. We have to make, since we only have one equation, we can only have one variable. And that's what we took this one. We had one equation and three variables. We put it down to one variable only. Now we can solve it because we can solve for W. Once we find W, plug it in there, we find L. So let's work it out. 207.4 equals. Distribute this, which is 4W minus 27.2 plus 2W. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 13 is 26, 0.6 is 0.12. Whenever you get rid of parentheses, the first thing you want to do is combine like terms. We have 4W plus 2W is 6W. So I combine the W's. Add 27.2 to both sides to get rid of that variable, that value. So we'll get 234.6 equals 6W. And then do what? Then we divide by 6 both sides. We know they both have 2 in common. So 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 2 1 time. 2 goes into 3 1 time with 1 left over. 2 goes into 14 7 times. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Three goes into 11 3 times with 2 left over. 3 goes into 27 9 times. And 3 goes in. So the width is 39.1 inches. What's L? Yep. We have to plug in this W into this equation. L equals 2W minus 13.6. W is 39.1. Mm-hmm. 78.2 minus 13.6. 78.2 minus 13.6. 12 minus 6 is 6. 4. To answer the question, it says find the length and width of the panel. So the length of the panel was 64.6 inches and the width was 39.1 inches. And that's one of the easier ones. But yeah, the hardest part is when it gave you the statement. The length of a panel is 13.6 inches less than twice the width. You usually always have to look for a relationship between the variables. Example 10. Example 10. Cab fare. Metro Taxi charges $2.50 pickup fee and $2 per mile traveled. Grayson's cab fare from the airport to his hotel is $32.50. How many miles did he travel? So we know $2.50 pickup fee, $2 per mile, total fare from the airport to his hotel was $32.50. How many miles?
We're trying to find the distance.
Is this a motion problem or it's a business problem, not really a motion. It's not giving us a rate of time, not giving us speed. All it's saying is this is a fixed price. Good thought though, because you're going from an airport to a hotel, so that's the distance problem. But we don't have any of that information. We don't have a rate, we don't have distance or anything. So how would we put this together? We're looking how many miles. We know the total fare was $32.50. We know it's $2.50 just to pick them up and $2 per mile. Well, the total fare is made up of what? Pickup plus mileage fee. This is an equation. The total amount was $32.50. Just to pick them up, it cost them $2.50. Now, above and beyond that, he had to pay $2 per mile. How many miles? Do we know how many miles? So it's X. That's our equation. To solve for X, the number of miles, we subtract 250 from both sides. That's 30 equals 2x divided by 2 equals 15 miles from the airport to the hotel.
That's probably the easiest one to sort out.
Yeah, I agree. Zeros of linear functions. Remember, last week we talked about what zeros were. Zeros are the same things as solutions. A solution is the same thing as an x-intercept. So whenever we're looking for zeros, we take the function and set it equal to 0 and solve for x. Example 11 says find the 0 of the function f of x equals 5x minus 9. Find the 0. So what we do? Nope. How do we solve this one?
Let's plug something into X, but I don't know what that's the main problem.
Nope. The clue is what we just talked about. How do you find the x-intercept? What do you do? No. Set y equals 0. And remember, y is the same thing as f of x. To find the 0, we set the whole thing equal to 0. And solve for x. Add 9 to both sides. And then divide by 5. So 0 is at 9 over 5. That's your 0. That's the end of section 5. Now we're going to start section 6.